Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Shikha, and today I'd like to be sharing with you a little bit as to what a global citizen really means to be in our shrinking world. So just as a background, I was born in India, but I was raised for 18 years in Hong Kong. Have a strange sort of amalgamation of an English international weird accent, and decided to make my way over to Durham, North Carolina 3 years ago to begin my undergraduate career. Now, oftentimes when I tell people all these four counterparts about myself, they're a little confused, and I don't know why. But all jokes aside, sometimes it confuses me. And in order to really experience and fit together these counterparts, I decided to embark on a journey through to Duke Engage through Kolkata and Copenhagen in Denmark through abroad. And so from this, I created my own 4 stages of acclimating in a new city. Number 1 is culture shock and nervousness. Number 2, acceptance and anticipation. Number 3, belonging and acclimatization. And number 4, bittersweet ending and being engaged. However, so what? What does this all mean? From this, I've created a coping mechanism in order to interact as a global citizen. And I'd like to call this ACE. Adaptability, curiosity, and excitability. And throughout this talk, I know you have a few pages at the end of your manuals. I'd like for you to keep writing down coping mechanisms of your own as I go through my talk. First, though, I'd like for you to close your eyes. I'd like for you to think of a place that you've never been to, but have always wanted to go to. Think about the sounds, the smells, the people, and the experiences. Think about the feelings of anxiousness, of nervousness, of awe, and of excitement. I'd like for you to hold on to these feelings and now open your eyes. These very feelings are exactly what I mustered up inside of me through my journey from Kolkata to Copenhagen. And now I'd like to share with you the 4 stages of how I acclimated and became a global citizen throughout this. So the first stage, culture shock and nervousness. Imagine disembarking from a plane and literally getting smacked in your face with humidity, 90-degree heat, flies sweating on your face, and no concept of lanes. I distinctly remember our program director, Baishaki, turning around to our horrified faces in the car and saying to hold on, close your eyes, and trust the driver because this bumper-to-bumper traffic ain't gonna get any better. And so, aside from this humidity and heat, sometimes the culture shock and nervousness really set in as we were walking down the street, as we observed kids playing our favorite games on the streets that they call their home. A few months later in August, as I disembarked from the plane in Copenhagen, I got welcomed by life-size Barbie dolls and an amazing statistic that a third of the population actually bikes, not recreationally, to work, to school. The royal prince bikes his kids to school. And just a simple transportational difference really made me feel anxious and uneasy. Not to mention the language barrier. I distinctly remember walking into my first Bengali and my first Danish class. And the fact is that even though these 2 languages are so different, I still felt the same sense of wanting to know about the communities more, of wanting to be able to learn these languages so I could experience the opportunity to engage with these communities in a better way. And so I took all these to heart, made my home in Transit House in Kolkata, and Kiosk Collegium in Copenhagen, which probably doesn't make any sense to you, but I made these 2 my home for the rest of the time that I was there. And so what? So the coping mechanism that I got from this first stage of culture shock and nervousness was adaptability. And I'd like for you to now think of your first stage from being cultured, having culture shock and nervousness, and write down your stage of a coping mechanism for this. And so stage 2 was acceptance and anticipation. I think the turning point for me to really feel accepted in the community of Copenhagen was when one of my friends and I decided to explore a neighborhood of Copenhagen, and on a very sunny but rare day. And we decided to go through this park, only to be stormed by 20 young Danish kids shouting words at us that we couldn't understand and shoving cupcakes in our faces. And the thing is, a few exchanges and cupcakes later, I realized that that initial language barrier that was my culture shock was now me being now gave me the feeling of being accepted into the community, and that I was no longer scared to be able to interact with them, even though I didn't know what they were saying. Similarly, over the summer in Kolkata, I was working in a small public school, and part of our community development projects was to create a mobile library, which we went to the wider community and read to children who didn't have access to these certain books. And though my interaction with these children was very different from the children in Denmark, I realized that the way that I approached it was in the same way as in wanting to build relationships, disregarding the language barrier, and really thinking about us as equals and working together. And so probably the biggest event that happened to me that made me feel accepted into the community and felt like a true citizen in Kolkata was when we got stuck in a 4-hour political rally. So we disembarked on this day to view some of the historical sites of Kolkata. And with the disbelief and laughter of our driver, who was very amused at our ambitious schedule, we surely enough did get stuck on a highway for 4 hours. And throughout the screenings of this political rally and of people walking past us, yes, it was frustrating. It was so frustrating being stuck on a highway. Some of the guys started walking on the highway to get to the metro station. However, I realized that being part of this made me feel like every other citizen that was in the community. And that really made me feel accepted and felt like Kolkata is now becoming my home. And so this coping mechanism for me was now curiosity. I was curious to learn more about these cultures. I was curious to find out where these obstacles would take me, and I was excited to continue my experience. So I want you guys to write down your coping mechanism for feeling accepted and anticipated with the rest of your experience. So the third stage was belonging and feeling acclimated. Holidays are a very, very important part of all of us because they signify tradition, family ties, and for a lot of our group in Kolkata, 4th of July was the first time that a lot of the group had spent away from their families. And though I'm not American, I understand the significance of this holiday. And what was so amazing to see was that even through being in a different culture, we managed to acquire fireworks. We put together this lavish meal. Though it being Indian, we managed to celebrate this American holiday in an Indian community so well. A few months later in Copenhagen, the same thing happened with Thanksgiving. I soon realized after walking into a Danish supermarket that I wasn't going to be able to find ingredients to create a full Thanksgiving meal. We somehow did manage to identify a turkey and use asparagus soup instead of mushroom for a green bean casserole. But apart from all this, what it really made me realize was that being immersed in the community and bringing one of our holidays from home to this new community meant that we were really creating this place as our home. So friendship and relationships is probably one of the biggest things I value, especially in terms of being a global citizen. In Kolkata, we found a friend in Sanjeev. So he was a 24-year-old who worked in the guest house that we were staying in. And initially, those awkward interactions with the language barrier, with the not knowing who these people are, quickly turned into someone who used to accompany us, provide us with support, and really made me realize that he was one of the reasons why I felt so welcomed into the city. And in Copenhagen, a few months later, the same thing happened with 2 Danish friends we met. Danes are reputed for being very reserved upon your first meeting with them. However, they completely disregarded the fact that we were 15, 21-year-old loud Americans and fit right in. And these relationships I made have definitely made me excitable. This is a coping mechanism that I think is so important to have when you're interacting with new communities and building new relationships. Because without this, there's no way for you to get out of your social norms, step out of your comfort zone, and really truly immerse yourself and make the interactions that last. So I want you to think of a coping mechanism now that comes from feeling like you're acclimated in a place. And the fourth stage was, of course, the bittersweet ending, but of feeling engaged. I remember the final days in Kolkata. I was walking through the halls of the public school I was working at, and thinking to myself that this might be the last time that I really get welcomed with these warm faces. Or the fact that we would go to our other community partners and make French toast for the kids, or play with them in their garden field. And this is something that I've struggled with for a while. I love traveling, I love immersing myself in new communities, and I love building new relationships. But sometimes the struggle comes with how to hold on to this experience and take it back to where you're coming from. And that really helped with something I learned in Copenhagen. So I had a visiting family, which is my adopted family in Copenhagen, and though I didn't live with them, met with them and did activities with them on a regular basis. And they helped me find this word called hygge. This is one of my favorite words, favorite Danish word by far. And there's no direct English translation, however, it means the feeling of being cozy, of being content. And this is not only to do with sitting at a group friend dinner and having a really good time. It's to do with the state of mind. And this state of mind of being content is really what I felt when I was away. And I've tried to hold on to this and bring it back with me. So from this, I felt engaged. My stages and my coping mechanisms brought me to the state where I felt immersed in the community and ready to act as a global citizen. And I'd like for you to think of what your end result would be after your coping mechanisms. So culture shock and nervousness, acceptance and anticipation, belonging and acclimation, and bittersweet ending and being engaged. So what has this made me realize? What does it actually mean to be a global citizen? For me, it means to be adaptable, to be curious, and to be excited. And all of these make you really engage and experience what it is to be a global citizen. In front of you, you now have 3 of your coping mechanisms. And I really urge you to think about what you'd like to get experienced and what you'd like to get out of this. How you'd like to pursue your next interaction or your next visit to a new place. And so back to my confused state of mind at the beginning. I realized that although there may be different counterparts that I've experienced throughout my life so far, that they don't need to be treated individually. That they're part of me, and I'm an individual who now acts as a global citizen because I've realized that these 4 things are what has enabled me to develop the coping mechanisms for my times abroad. So I'd like to leave you with this quote. When they fall in love with a city, it is forever, and it is like forever. As though there never was a time when they didn't love it. The minute they arrive at the train station, or get off the ferry and glimpse the wide streets and the wasteful lamps lighting them, they know they are born for it. They're stronger, riskier selves. I urge you to go back to that place that in your mind that you created 11 minutes ago. Whether it was a physical city, a new community, or even a new place in your mind of shaping new ideals and dealing with new situations. I want you to create that feeling of excitement and enthusiasm and hold on to it. I want you to urge yourself to be that stronger, riskier version of yourself and to be a global citizen.